a lot of people have asked me, what does that mean? And just because, we're going around and we're posting it on our Facebook status or we're posting cute pictures of it doesn't necessarily mean we understand it. And I'm not here to explain what Gandhi meant by it, but I am here to share with you my concept of what being the change you want to see on the world is. And also, I guess for lack of a better term, my philosophy on living awake. One of the things that I enjoy about GIC, and I feel is a driving force behind the founding of our Global Illumination Council network, is the fact that we are there for people who are beginning to awaken. And awakening could be anything from awakening to the political power structure and awakening to the corruption within that, and or awakening to the spiritual side of life. And I feel that both really go hand in hand, and you can see from our work and from our posts that we post in our blogs and whatnot, that we do try to create a balance of both. That it is about the clarity and understanding of the world that is around us, and it is also the connection that we have with our higher being, our higher calling, our spirit, whatever you wish, whatever term works for you. But it is something that goes hand in hand, and one of the things that I have been proud to be a part of the GIC is the fact that we do provide people a haven, for lack of a better term, for people to explore their awakening. We've had people that have just awoken, just awoken to either the corruption of the political power structure, or they've awoken to the fact that perhaps they're a light worker, perhaps they're a starseed, perhaps they're an indigo, and they really don't have direction. And when I was younger, and I will say probably around 18, 19, when I was going through my first awakening, and we'll go into the awakenings that we have throughout life in a moment. But when I had my first awakening, I remember begging the universe to send me teachers. It was like, I get it, but I don't know how to implement it. Okay, I understand. I get the aha. I got the big aha. But no one was ever really there to guide me. And the people that were there to guide me were basically, don't get me wrong, I respect every single one of them, and I respect all the work that they did with me. But the reality of it is, looking back, they were, and I don't mean this, I don't know how to say this any clearer, I don't mean this disrespectfully, they were book witches. And I think that's because of the fact that the awakening, whatever you want to call it, what's happening now, was just getting started, and nobody really knew what was going on, and I don't even think we trusted ourselves enough to just speak from our heart. So a lot of what I learned was from the books. A lot of what I learned was from, the classes that were based on textbooks, anything from Drawing Down the Moon to the Shamanic Voyage, things like that, people had taken upon themselves, including myself, to relate into a class/workshop form for those that are interested to, get a grasp of their spiritual path and the awakening. Now, let me just share this. I guess you can call this, I'm editorializing here a little bit, that my feeling of awakening may not be the same as others. I feel that for me, I found that, well, first of all, I had my awakening when I was maybe, 23, 24. And ever since then, it just seems to be I don't want to say a struggle, but a search for others of like mind, for others that have had that aha, that have peeled away the veil, that have seen what I've seen and understand the universe and understand the world the same way, basically the same way that I have. I used to share with my friends that it's like walking through a busy street in New York City, and like all of a sudden you'll see one or two heads pop up, and you're like, I recognize you. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you got it too. You know, it's like you're one of the millions that can relate to what I'm feeling and what I'm understanding and what I'm going through physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I found that in the 80s and 90s, I was lucky enough to be in the pagan movement, and there were quite a few awakened beings. But I will say, just because they're pagan doesn't mean they're awakened. A lot of them are just reading books and mimicking books and trying to be fashionable. Back then it was very fashionable to be a witch. But and goth. Goth started after that, so it was like, oh, these goth witches and whatnot. But that's not being awakened. That's being fashionable. So to me, the whole idea of presenting these types of workshops became really, really important and became very much a priority for me to try to not only, quite honestly, I'll say I went about it wrong earlier in my teaching days. I've been teaching now for almost 20 years, but the way that I feel I went about it wrong was that instead of providing a platform for others who have awakened to discuss their experiences and their ahas and share them with others who have gone through the same thing, I was busy trying to teach people to awaken. And you can't teach people to awaken. You can't. I feel that it's something that happens to us at the right moment, at the right time, if it is meant to be, if ever. I feel that there is a lot of us that choose not to, even though we may have the calling, we may have that aha moment that wakes us up and says, this isn't right, or expands on our senses when you start having a psychic vision or something appearing before your eyes, or, orbs, flying around you when you're sleeping, things of that nature of which I can relate to. But it's not something that you just say, okay, well, I'm going to go awaken, and I'm going to go be awake next week. I'm going to go pay $2,000 and go to that sweat lodge and awaken. It doesn't work that way. And I feel, there was a saying back in the day, and I forgot who said it. I'm almost sure it's Scott Cunningham that said it, that the goddess calls to her altar those who have been before, or something to that nature. And so I'm paraphrasing, but I will say the same thing goes for awakening. It's a calling. It's not something you search for. It's something that, you could be standing in line at the grocery store and something, triggers, maybe a headline on People magazine or something, and you're like, whoa, I get it. Now I get it, and that awakening keeps happening. It's not just one awakening. The awakening is a process. I probably would say for me it's been thousands of little epiphanies, little aha moments that happen constantly throughout my life, some bigger than others, some continuing, and you can feel at a certain point on your path, you can start feeling that draw of, where the universe is pushing you or leading you into, and you can tell there's an awakening headed down that road, or an epiphany, I guess, is a better term. But again, this whole idea that, I've awakened, so therefore I know everything, that's a big, I guess, ego lie, for lack of a better term. If that's the ego saying, okay, now you got it. No. The reality of it is that once you awaken, you realize you don't get it. You start realizing that you are here to question. You are here to not only question the world around you, but to question your own thoughts and ideas of the world around you. And when we are not questioning and we think we know, that's when we fall into this trap, this idea of who we are and what the world is supposed to be like. And by doing that, we're going to just create more and more obstacles and heartache. And quite honestly, it will be a block of your spiritual awakening if that's what you're leaning toward and what you're hoping for. I remember when I first got involved in the whole light worker scene, for lack of a better term, the idea of giving up my pagan beliefs, and not to say that I've erased my pagan beliefs, but they're not the same as they were. And at that time, it was a personality crisis. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe this anymore. This doesn't seem right to me. To really get to that point, and I can only imagine that people that were raised, hardcore Catholic or hardcore Judaism or hardcore Islam, and that they're now awakening, going, no, this isn't right. It must create some kind of, psychic crisis for all of us that are going through this. Like, what do you mean Christ isn't the Son of God? What do you mean God might be feminine? It's a very, very disconcerting moment when you start to give up the idea of who you are. And to give up that idea of who you are is going to, well, first it has to come from some kind of a psyche fracture. We want to fracture that psyche because it's pigeonholing our beliefs, and that's not anything that any of us want to do. So let's get over to the topic at hand, and let's discuss this idea of being the change we want to be and living it.